Good day and welcome back to another World of Warcraft video. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the heroic talents for Death Knights, and specifically obviously Blood DK, because I think I'm going to be maining a Blood DK. Now, I don't know how many of these videos I'm going to do for a couple reasons. Firstly, I don't know every class super duper well. Secondly, these are subject to change, so they could change literally like tomorrow. And thirdly, reading through patch notes and stuff is cool. I know some people like it, they like to hear the patch notes. A lot of people like to listen to it while they're working and stuff. So I'm not against it, but for me, it's, not the most enjoyable video to make. Because a lot of it is just me reading, then dissecting what's being read. More than actively trying stuff out, obviously. But we'll take a look. So I thought let's take a look at Death Knights. I might do Demon Hunters and then see how it goes, and we take it from there. But let's look at Death Knights. So obviously we have 3 trees. So we have Deathbringer, Rider of the Apocalypse, and Sanalain. These are dependent on what you are going to play. So for example, if you're looking at Deathbringer, it's for Blood and Frost. Apocalypse is for Frost and Unholy, and Sanalain is for Blood and obviously Unholy. So each class will have a choice between the 2 heroic trees, and these will kick in the moment you hit level 71. So let's start with Deathbringer. So Deathbringer brings an interesting new talent that costs 2 runes, an instant cast, basically that will viciously slice into the soul of your enemy. The attack power will change depending on your spec. Now, I will say a lot of the spec changes, for the most part, feel like adjustments on the percentage. Obviously, they don't want Blood DKs doing a huge chunk of damage, so they'll change the percentage comparative to Frost. But the effects all feel very, very similar. So a lot of the times, I won't denote the difference between the 2 unless it is something that is explicitly an effect change. So like here, I'm not going to say that Frost and Blood, well I will now, but in future I'm not going to say, well, Blood is 150%, Frost is 320, because these are, respectable to the specs. They don't really do anything with the ability beyond the change in obviously the numbers. See, when you viciously slice into the soul of your enemy, Shadow Frost, dealing Shadow Frost damage and applying Reaper's Mark. Each time you deal Shadow or Frost damage, add a stack of Reaper's Mark. After 12 seconds or reaching 40 stacks, the mark will explode, dealing damage per stack. Reaper's Mark travels to an unmarked enemy nearby if the target dies or explodes below 35% health when there are no enemies to travel to. This explosion cannot occur again on target for 3 minutes. So it's just a huge chunk of damage, some good initial damage, then some follow-up damage based on the stacks. Really, really, really good. Then we have 3 very interesting lanes to kind of go through, and from my understanding you basically have to choose a lane, so we'll go through each lane separately. So in the first one we have Wave of Souls. Reaper's Mark sends forth bursts of Shadow Frost energy and back, dealing 69% of attack power, Shadow Frost damage both ways to all enemies caught in its path. Wave of Souls critical strikes cause enemies to take 5% increased Shadow Frost damage for 15 seconds, stacking up to 2 times, and it's always a critical strike on its way back. This is the same for Frost and Blood DK. Exactly the same, just obviously the numbers change. So this is cool. Just again, seems like more AoE damage basically, and obviously wants you to benefit off of your critical strike building on your character. Then we get Soul Rupture. When the mark explodes, it deals 10% of the damage dealt to nearby enemies, so more AoE damage. Enemies hit by this effect deal 5% reduced physical damage to you. Now this is actually really, really good, especially for Blood DK tanks, because DK traditionally is very good against magic damage. Not saying struggles, but does not have the best performance against physical damage dealers. So this is very, very good for them. Then we get Swift End. So here you can choose between the 2. Swift End, Reaper's Mark's cost is reduced by 1 rune and its cooldown is reduced by 15 seconds. The cooldown is 45 seconds, makes it 30-second one rune cost, which is nice, easier to implement rotation. Then you get Painful Death. Reaper's Mark deals 10% increased damage, and Exterminate empowers an additional Marrow End, but now reduces its cost by 1 rune. Additionally, Exterminate now has a 30% chance to apply Reaper's Mark. So this is interesting. It's 2 paths here. So I think Swift End is just better for the DPS side of things. You get to proc it more, you get to use it more. And then you get Painful Death, which allows you to essentially empower a Marrow End, which could be very, very good if you are looking to increase your tankiness overall, as Marrow End deals with additional bone stacks. Then we have Exterminate. So this is a talent. After Reaper's Mark explodes, your next Marrow End costs no runes and summons 2 sides to strike your enemy. This changes for Frost. They obliterate, cost no runes. The first side strikes your target for Shadow Frost damage and has a 20% chance to apply Reaper's Mark again. The second side strikes all enemies around your target for Shadow Frost damage and applies Frost Fever, deals reduced damage beyond 8 targets. This is the same for both, the numbers just change. So obviously Exterminate, pretty much just a way to incorporate more Marrow Ends into your rotation, to incorporate more Obliterates into your rotation. I think what it's essentially nice is it replaces the implementation of the cost of Reaver's Mark into your rotation. So you now want to use Reaver's Mark, boom, you use it, but it's costing you 2 runes. Now it's also refunding you an Obliterate or a Marrow End, so you feel less pain to use it. Let's go to the middle tree. Blood Plague has a chance to deal 30% increased damage as Shadow Frost. Your Frost Fever has a chance to deal 30% increased damage as Shadow Frost. So that's pretty interesting. Proc chance of 45%. Basically just a flat increase to Shadow Frost damage, which I guess obviously increases the overall damage of Reaver's Mark. Grim Reaper. Reaper's Mark Explosion deals up to 30% increased damage based on your target's missing health and applies Soul Reaper to targets below 35% health. So this is just basically a way to say more AoE damage but more health based, so you could use it for example on bosses who are missing a large portion of health, and what it will do is increase the damage done to mobs around them, so it could be good for those type of situations. Choose one, Dark Talons or Wither Away. Dark Talons, Marrow End and Heart Strike with 25% chance to increase the maximum stacks of active Icy Talons by 1 up to 2. While Icy Talons is active, your runic power spending abilities also counter Shadow Frost damage. Wither Away, Blood Plague deals its damage in half the duration, and the second Scythe of Exterminate applies Blood Plague. Really, here, I'm not going to lie to you, feels much of a muchness. So obviously the first one is allowing you to increase Shadow Frost damage. Shadow Frost damage obviously is pretty important if you want to maximize Reaper's Mark's damage. Then Blood Plague obviously is just something more for blood decays and allows you to apply debilitating buffs to your enemies to help make you tankier. And then obviously they result in Exterminate. Then we have Blind in the Darkness. Shadow Frost damage applies 2 stacks to Reaper's Mark and 4 stacks when it's a critical strike. Additionally, Blood Whale deals Shadow Frost damage. Shadow Frost damage applies 2 stacks to Reaper's Mark and 4 stacks when it's a critical. So all the same. Additionally, Rhyme is empowered. Howling Blast deals Shadow Frost damage. So just a way again to increase Shadow Frost damage because this increases Reaper's Mark damage. Then you can choose between Pact of the Deathbringer or Ruin Carved Plates. When suffering damaging effect equal to 25% of your max health, you instantly cast Death Pack at 50% effectiveness. When Reaper's Mark explodes, the cooldowns of this effect and Death Pack are reduced by 5 seconds. Very, very good. And then we also have Ruin Carved Plates. Each rune spent reduces the magic damage you take by 2%, and each rune generated reduces the physical damage you take by 2% for 5 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. So this is just good on either side. So one is an emergency heal. Could be very, very nice in situations where you want that backup. The other one is just basically a way to alternate between increased magic resistance or increased physical resistance. Both are more than acceptable really in a lot of ways. Just going to depend on what dungeon you're taking on if you want to take that mixture of physical and defensive security. Death's Messenger reduces the cooldown of Lichborn and Raise Dead by 30 seconds, so more just utility. And then Expelling Shield when the enemy deals direct damage to an anti-magic shield, their cast speed is reduced by 10% for 6 seconds. So this could be good if you're facing spell casters, PvP, etc. So for me, all three trees represent something very different. So for example, this side here kind of deals predominantly more with a lot of utility. You've got backup cast, you've got alternating magic, physical resistance, you've got a slow for casters, and you've got reduction of utility cooldowns. This middle one deals a lot with just basically applying more damage, maximizing Shadow Frost damage, and also of course allowing you to maximize your single target damage and applying it in an AoE sense. And then this first panel here kind of deals a lot more in maximizing the power of Exterminate, but also helping to incorporate Reaper's Mark as more a rotationary item. I personally like this first tree. I don't know, just I like the increased physical damage. I think Anti-Magic Shield provides enough protection for Death Knights as it is, and so does healing. So for Blood DK, I kind of like this so far. We get Riders of the Apocalypse. Well, let's go to Sand Lane, because obviously we can finish off Blood DK then. So Sand Lane, you get Vampiric Strike, your Death Coil, and your Death Strike with 10% chance to make your next hard strike become Vampiric. Vampiric Strike heals you for 1% of max health and grants you the Essence of Blood Queen, increasing your haste by 1% up to 5% for 20 seconds. The same thing for Unholy, just Death Coil and Demic or Death Strike have a 10% chance to make your next Scourge Strike. You get a bigger heal, but the same thing. So a haste increase is always good. Haste is great for all tanks. Not so certain how good it is for Unholy, but it's definitely very good for all tanks. Then we look at the left tree, we have Newly Turned. Raise Ally, revives players at full health and grants them an Absorb Shield, so utility. And then Vampiric Speed, Death's Advance, and Wraithwalk movement speed bonuses are increased by 10%. Activating Death's Advance or Wraithwalk increases for nearby allies' movement speed, so again, more utility. Both are pretty cool, but neither seems that imperative. The Revive could be pretty cool, to be honest with you. Could be very nice for some fights, especially on key DPS. Infliction of Sorrow, so when Vampiric Strike damages an enemy affected by your Blood Plague, it extends the duration of the disease by 3 seconds. And deals 10% of the remaining damage to the enemy. After Gift of Sand Lane ends, your next hard strike consumes the disease to deal 100% of the remaining damage to the target. When Vampiric Strike damages and affected by a virulent plague, extends the duration of the disease by 3 seconds and deals 10% of the remaining damage to the enemy. So this basically just extends the duration of, for Unholy, your darts, which is pretty cool. For Death Knights, obviously your main, one of your main methods of reduction of enemy power, which could be pretty cool. It also then enables you to just get a bit of a spike DPS at the end of it, which is nice. When Crimson Scourge is consumed, you gain 6% strength. When Sudden Death is consumed, you gain 6% strength. And then we have Gift of the Sand Lane. While Vampiric Blood or Dark Transformation is active, you gain Gift of the Sand Lane. Gift of the Sand Lane increases the effectiveness of your Essence of the Blood Queen by 100%, and Vampiric Strike replaces your Scourge Strike for the duration. The same applies to Blood DK. So basically, to cut a long story short, this just enables you to have your Vampiric Strike time proc boost quite efficiently, giving you a very big increase in overall healing. And then obviously for certain aspects, increasing your overall dot damage. So could be very interesting. I think overall not too bad. Doesn't feel as impactful as Exterminate, but obviously less reliant on you dealing a specific type of damage and more just a passive. This whole thing feels a lot more like a passive, basically that's less management. So like whereas Reaper's Mark is a spell you have to maintain, actively work towards, this feels a lot more passive, at least on this side so far. In the middle, Blood-Soaked Ground. While you're within Death and Decay, your physical damage taken is reduced by 5%. Your chance to gain a Vampiric Strike is increased. This is just feels good. Like this just feels good. Death and Decay, especially for tanks, is like absolutely necessary. It's one of your big aggro pullers, especially for mobs. This could be A Mythic Plus exclusive talent, very good, it seems overall. Frenzied Bloodthirst, Essence of the Blood Queen, stacks 2 additional times and increases damage of your Death Coil and Death Strike by 3% per stack. So this is just a flat damage increase, seems perfectly fine, probably pretty good for like Unholy, because I know Death Coil is a much bigger component for them. Incite Terror, Vampiric Strike and Scourge Strike cause your targets to take 1% increased shadow damage, stacking up to 5%. Benefits from Incite Terror at 400% effectiveness. Vampiric Strike, same thing. Again, flat damage increase, which could be good. And obviously allows you to really benefit from the heal, maximizing it. It could be good for single targets. It doesn't really feel like any other usage outside from that. Maybe if you need to spike more healing overall, you just feel like you're dying. It's a good survivability mechanism. Then we go on the right, we have Vampiric Aura. So Vampiric Aura, your leech is increased by 2%. While Leech Bonus is active, the leech bonus of this effect is increased by 100%, and it affects 4 allies within 12 yards. It's actually a nice AoE healing ability that could be applicable to party members, which could be pretty good. Then we have the Blood is Life. Vampiric Strike has a chance to summon a Blood Beast to attack your enemy. Each time the Blood Beast attacks, it stores a portion of the damage dealt. When the Blood Beast dies, it explodes, dealing 25% damage accumulated to nearby enemies and healing Death Knight for the same amount. Seems fine. Doesn't feel like anything too major. It's obviously helps with damage on an AoE sense, just providing you with another avenue for AoE damage and a force back heal. Again, could be nice for Mythic Plus for Unholy, but I think this will be the premier one for DK Blood, at least for me. Choose one, pack the Sand Lane, you store 50% of all shadow damage dealt into your Blood Beast to explode for additional damage when it expires, which is cool. Your Death Coil and Death Strike have a 15% increased chance to trigger Vampire Strike when damaging enemies below 35% health. Look, I think this is just going to depend really on what you're dealing with. The first one obviously maximizes AoE damage, the second one helps you more in single target boss fights. Just pick accordingly. It really feels like that's quite a simple choice. Right now, for Blood DK, I feel like this is still one of my favorites just because of its maximization of physical damage resistance, but I feel like this definitely probably is the right play to go because it feels like it's integrating really good passive management. So not active management, which is easier for players to handle, is much simpler and fits into the rotation very easy, which I think could be good. Then we have Riders of the Apocalypse. This is Unholy and Frost. So we have Riders Champion. Spending runes has a chance to call forth the aid of a horseman, and you have the 4 horsemen. So Mograine casts Death and Decay. White Mane casts Undeath at your target, dealing Shadow Frost damage per stack. Each time the undead deals damage, it gains stacks, cannot be refreshed. Trollbane casts Chains of Ice on your target, slowing their movement. And Nazgrim, while Nazgrim's active, you gain Apocalyptic Conquest, increasing your strength by 3%. Seems like they're randomized. Doesn't mention anything else here. Maybe they just cycle. So we'll look at the left-hand side. On a Pale Horse requires Death Knight, of course. While outdoors, you're able to mount your Archer's Deathbringer in combat. Death Charge. Call upon your Death Charge to break free of all movement impairment effects for 10 seconds. While upon your Death Charge, your movement speed is increased by 100%, cannot be slowed, and you're immune to forced knockbacks. Honestly, I know the Death Charge outdoors thing is cool, but if you are going to choose a talent here, please choose the Death Charge. It is essentially the Paladin's Holy Burst, but the Death Knight version, and it is going to help you in PvP, it's going to help you in PvE, it's going to help you in everything, okay? White Mane's Famine. When Scourge Strike damages an enemy affected by undeath, it gains 1 stack and infects another nearby enemy. Very interesting. And then you have Frost. When Obliterate damages an enemy affected by undeath, it gains 1 stack and infects another nearby enemy. So yeah, basically maximizing your AoE damage. Doesn't really feel like anything too major here. when I say too major, I mean it seems very straightforward to understand. I don't think I have to unpack that. Hunger and thirst, damage of your diseases and death coil increased by 10%. Your damage of your diseases and frost strikes increased by 10%. So a flat buff, pretty much 10% to some of your commonly used abilities. And in Apocalypse Now, Army of the Dead and Frostworm's Fury call upon all 4 horsemen to age over 20 seconds. Now this, way better. It kind of makes sense that they would make this the final talent, because, you know, for me, you know, very clearly, obviously, you know, having all 4 at once is kind of more ideal than randomly proccing one at any given time, just because it helps you with actually managing your load more than anything else. So very, very, very good stuff overall. Middle tree, Mograin's Mind, your damage is increased by 5%. You gain the benefits of your death and decay while inside Mograin's death and decay. So if I'm reading this correctly, your damage is increased by 5% and you gain the benefits of your death and decay while inside Mograin's death and decay means your damage. And then it goes up by 5% if you're inside Mograin's death and decay. Then Nazgrim's Conquest, if an enemy dies while Nazgrim's active, the strength of Apocalypse Conquest is increased by 3%. Each unit you spend increases its value by 1%. Then you get Fury of the Horseman, and this can be split into 2. Fury of the Horseman, every 50 runic power you spend extends the duration of the Horseman's aid in combat up to 5 seconds, and then Feast of Souls, while you have 2 or more Horsemen aiding you, your runic power spending abilities deal 20% more damage. Okay, the Horsemen, all of them. So I think for me, this obviously maximizes the benefit of the proccing of Rider's Champion. So the middle tree, when you proc Rider's Champion, you're going to maximize this, all 3, pretty majorly. For me, I definitely would go Feast of Souls. Runic spending powers are your big damage spenders. Giving them 20% extra just seems like makes perfect sense. Increasing their duration is also though pretty cool. But I would probably say Feast of Souls, just because of how big that buff is. I don't know how much of the duration you're going to get out of spending runic power. You know, 5 seconds more. It does increase its active time from 10 seconds to 15 seconds. I mean, it's good. It's a 50% boost. It just depends if the 20% on the runic spending outweighs the 50% increase in time. Then you get Horseman's Aid. One that you aid, the Horseman will occasionally cast Anti-Magic Shield on you and themselves at 80% effectiveness. Or you get Pact of the Apocalypse. When you take damage, 5% of the damage is redirected to each active Horseman. Yeah, Anti-Magic Shield. Take it if you're facing magic damage. Pact of the Apocalypse. Take it if you're not facing magic damage. Trollbane's Ice Fury. Yeah, I probably would say just take Pact of the Apocalypse. It works on all damage, it seems, so it's a 20% flat boost. Obviously, Anti-Magic Shield will stop all magic, but you get the best of both worlds with the other one. Then Trollbane's Icy Fury. Scourge Strike shatters Trollbane's chains of ice when hit, dealing Shatterfrost damage to nearby enemies and slowing them by 40% for 4 seconds. Same with Obliterate. Cool for a slow. Could be nice for PvP, I think. Generally speaking, that's probably where I would use it. Just because of the way the Chains of Ice works. Gives you additional more slow, some nice AoE for Battlegrounds. Don't know how useful it'll be outside of some mobs, specific mobs in dungeons. And then Morsworn Menace. Scourge Strike deals 50% increased damage, and the cooldown is reduced by 10 seconds. Same with Obliterate. I think, looking at Riders of the Apocalypse, I think it's very cool. It's also a lot more passive. So I will say, straight off the bat, Reaper's Mark is an active tree. Feels like you have to be more active. You have to apply Reaper's Mark. It's going to fit into your rotation. It's its own spell. Both of these are more passive. So immediately, right off the bat, if you are someone who is, focusing on trying to integrate things into rotation, Sandlane or Rider of the Apocalypse is going to be for you. Whether that's for Unholy, Frost, whatever your story is. If you're someone who likes throwing out buttons and is willing to manage Reaper's Mark and maximize your Shatterfrost damage, Reaper's Mark is going to be the one for you. I think for ease of purpose and for meta gameplay, you're probably going to find these two become more popular, depending on how well this incorporates into your rotation at your skill level. For me, I like to press buttons, so I would probably prefer this over them all. I'd probably say, talking pure meta, I would probably say Reaper's Mark for Frost. Left hand side tree definitely feels the best. Utility side if you just need that for your raid group. For Blood, I would say St. Lane. Middle tree first, definitely very much the best. And then for Unholy, I would probably say Rider's Champion. And then I would probably say, in all fairness, like looking at everything here, the left hand side, either because of diseases, or the middle, solely because of its maximization of the window of all four horsemen, which I think could be cool. If you're dying or you need more utility, on the right hand side. That's it from me. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. See you in the next one. Bye.